It's Sports by the Book at the South Point Studio. Here's Jeff Parles and Alex White.
Good morning. Oh, Ann cracked me up right at the beginning of the show. I'm Jeff Parles. Good morning, Alex.
Good morning. I'm Alex White. Looking forward to an exciting show. We've got some WNBA and some golf to get to. Special guest.
Yeah, we have not the greatest of sports calendars today, but there are some things to bring up, and we'll bring it up right now. It's actually today the starting three. We're going 3-on-3 hoops here today instead of 5-on-5, Alex. Kicking it off in Arlington, Texas, after Teoscar Hernandez triumph. I wonder where you heard that bet this week. Just wondering. Teoscar Hernandez over Bobby Wood in the final. And that leads into the MLB All-Star game tonight. Paul Skeens, Corbin Burns, your starters for the respective leagues. The American League All-Stars, minus 115, plus 105 on the take-back on the NL. 7.5 the total. The AL, Alex, even with the National League's win a year ago, still 9 out of the last 10. They won 9 in a row until the NL snapped out last year in Seattle.
That's right. And we'll talk about this a little bit more. And I do want to talk about that home run derby that you teased a little bit from last night. But finishing our starting three, number 2 for WNBA games on the board. 1 actually going on right now. But the headliner for today, the top 2 Eastern Conference teams meet for the third time. Connecticut Sun have not been able to beat the Liberty just yet. Looks like Breanna Stewart may be out, so this might be their opportunity. We'll break that one down here shortly.
Number 3, Alex, we have our sheets in front of us for the updated odds of the Open Championship. Royal Troon, one of the best there is for Open Championships, right on the coast there in Scotland. Tell me where you've heard this one before. Scotty Scheffler, your favorite. Not as short as he was in these other majors, though. He's 5-1 behind us right now. I've seen as high as 6-1 on Scheffler in the market. Rory McIlroy, after his heartbreak at the U.S. Open, second favorite at 10-1. Brady Cannon's going to join us later in the show to break it down. Also, tomorrow, won't spoil it, our friend Danny Burke will have some plays as well. So we'll have plenty of golf talk over the next 2 days, where baseball is on its All-Star break after the All-Star game here today, the next 2 days.
It's going back to that All-Star game that we will look ahead to for today. But that home run derby, I really like the format change. What did you think?
I won Teoscar Hernandez, so I liked it at least a little bit.
I must say, you've never been so wrong and so right at the same time.
But that's the good thing about having a short and a long shot.
That's right.
And now, granted,
and you'd rather have your long shot win. You're 10-1.
The way that I manipulated the money is Alonso would have been a bigger winner for me, but I still kind of messed up my numbers there, which was, again, trying to figure out what made sense, whatever. Still ended up being an 80-unit profit on Teoscar, which is good. Just left a little money on the table with the way that I manipulated it yesterday with that bet. And look, it's funny. Yesterday was the day of the long shots in that derby, where the only single-digit shot that even made the second round was Bobby Witt, who, of course, came 1 homer short to Teoscar. But the rest of the semifinals, your Jose Ramirez at 12-1 made it to the second round. Teoscar 12-1. If he got better than that, job well done. 18-1 on Bohm. 20-1 even was out there. Bohm made it to a swing off against Teoscar. So it was the day of the underdogs. I just wonder, in this new format, does going earlier in the round actually help you? We'll see if Major League Baseball sticks with it.
Right.
It seemed like the returns. It seemed like you were in the minority based off of what Social was saying last night, where they were like, "Oh, it's a little bit snoozy. It's not the greatest of derbies." I don't know. I thought it was entertaining, but the bigger issue is, more than anything, and this is just the broadcast person coming out of me, Alex, can't track the ball well with the constant pitches. Like, it's hard to keep track of, hey, which one went out, so on and so forth. I just wonder if Major League Baseball goes back to like an outs format like we did back in the day. But you know what? Good event is always fun, and never a bad thing to cash a 12-1. Never a bad thing.
I would be fine with going back to the outs. I just don't like the head-to-head starting from the first round. So I think that was a major improvement, having all 8 of them go against each other and taking the top 4. I do think you're right. Strategy now going earlier on is is better in this one, but we'll see if they make any changes because we know that they want their favorites to go deeper into the rounds.
Well, it doesn't help when your favorites just can't get the ball out of the ballpark. The two betting favorites yesterday finished 7th and 8th.
Yeah.
Alonso and Gunnar Henderson, both not coming close to getting out of round one. Marcell Ozuna was the closest of the three favorites to getting out of round one, just came up a few short. When he hit that bonus, got that bonus ball, I thought, he's going to get to 19. I'm going to be in trouble, and Teoscar's going to be gone, but did not get there. All right, let's go to the game tonight. The game tonight in Arlington, Skeens, Burns. Burns deserves the Cy Young. I've already been on record of saying that through our first half, so I'm happy the AL actually is throwing Burns. But, Alex, just a few things All-Star game-wise. Minus 115 on the AL, plus 105 on the flip side on the NL. Total 7.5. Just, as we talked about before, AL's won 9 out of the last 10. If you dated back a little bit, it's 9 out of the last 13, so it's not as aggressively bad for the NL if you push it back a little bit. Totals, look, usually these games go under because the pitchers usually have the better of the hitters in this one. I'm not touching this. The only thing that I would look at would be taking an under, as always, in this All-Star game. I know it's a low number, but again, the pitchers, as we say, usually get the better of the batters. There are some markets out there of pitchers to record strikeouts, hitters to record hits. Just be on the lookout. Those would be the only markets I would look to play. If you can find a book with some will they record a strikeouts out there, which is few and far between, which is more of a state of what bookmaking is in some of these books, more so than anything is, Alex, I would look to some no pitcher throwing strikeouts just because everyone in the game is favored to throw a strikeout, and we know that's not going to happen. Someone's not throwing a strikeout if they get on the mound tonight.
Right. And they're really probably only seeing 3 batters, maybe 4 or 5. But so it makes it a little bit tough. This is a very hard event to handicap. And as you mentioned, the American League has been so successful. It's hard to bet against them, even though we will have Paul Skeens starting off for the National League and a pretty good lineup behind him. But all in all, I do think the American League is a little bit more stacked hitting wise. So nothing for me either. I was looking for a trend for the totals. I just did notice that the last few have been very low scoring, but couldn't really find any actual numbers like we have with the American League 9-1 in the last 10.
Yeah. And again, this is since the turn of the millennium, the American League, excuse me, has been the better team. That's just the way it is broken down. Again, normally, at least until the designated hitter was in both leagues, they had a built-in advantage there. Actually, since the turn of the millennium, Alex White, the American League has only lost 4 times. That 3-game losing streak from 2010 to 2012 and last year. So the American League has dominated since the turn of the millennium. If you're looking for just real quick, just numbers, the only game that has gone north of 7 since 2016 was 2018, 8-6. If we dated back even further, there were some 8s mixed in there to make it a little bit more of a riskier proposition. But since 2016, only 1 game has gone north of 7. So that would lead us to the under. These games usually priced out at 7.5, more so than anything. So it has been a trend to the under. Some 7s mixed in there as well.
It's tough. We have some proposition wagers here at the South Point as well. Will there be a run scored in the first inning? No, minus 125. If you like that, yes. You're getting a little plus money there at plus 105. And then, of course, there's alternate run lines on here. If you like American League that much and you want to lay the run line, plus 175.
It's a good price. Need a 2-0 win probably in that circumstance. I don't know. Look, this is a nice day for me to just watch Paul Skeens pitch, and then I'm gonna be off the game. That's all. That's usually how I'll usually do the All-Star game. A little bit of pitchers I want to see, and that's that. No play for me officially. I'm assuming you're in the same boat. Again, if you can find some props where they're offering yes, no on will there be a recorded strikeout by certain pitchers, I would look to attack Seth Lugo. I'd look to attack Matt Strahm. I'd look to attack those guys who have really hefty yes prices, except for Mason Miller and Paul Skeens. Don't want to be doing that. I would be looking to attack those guys who have really hefty yes numbers and going no's. That would be the only way I'd look to even play anything in this game here tonight in Arlington.
Haven't had a rookie start the All-Star game in quite some time. Do you think that pressure will get to Paul Skeens at all? Of course, he is coming off of his best performance, 7 innings, no hits against the Brewers, and I'm sure you guys talked about that while I was gone.
He'll be fine.
Okay.
He'll be fine. Actually, Ryan, I sent this to Ryan. I just found it in my text to Ryan. Paul Skeens is only the 5th starting pitcher as a rookie to start the All-Star game. He's the first since Hideo Nomo did it in 1995. The others were Fernando Valenzuela, makes sense, 1981, came on, almost won the Cy Young as a rookie. Mark Fidrich, Big Bird there in 1976, and then Dave Stenhouse in 1972. The only 5 to do it. Skeens will be fine. I have no worries about that. And the only thing, remember, as always, as we've seen with Skeens, that first batter has been a bugaboo at times. He's given up leadoff home runs in multiple starts. So,
yeah,
the good thing for him is Stephen Kwan's leading off for the American League, not a power hitter by any stretch. I still would have wished they went Henderson, Soto, Judge, and we really could have seen some fireworks in that first inning. No disrespect to Kwan, who's going to win a batting title. I just want to see those big boppers against Skeen more so than anything. All right, you want to go to the W, Alex?
Let's go to the W.
So we have 3 games in it, 3 games that are not already in action. They have the 8:30 Pacific. Oh, yeah, there we go. There it is. I forgot that we had this bill. All the basketball's falling on our heads.
I love it.
There you go. So Phoenix and Washington already underway. 4.5 on Phoenix was the closer, 167.5. Phoenix up by 2, so that one's right on pace actually for everything right now. The other 3 matchups, day game in L.A., Sparks 9-point dogs at home against Seattle with a total of 162 first. Alex, is there anything here for this game?
So this one was interesting, right? It opened like 7.5, maybe 8 most places, and it was looking like Skylar Diggins-Smith was questionable because she did leave the game against Atlanta this past weekend after the second quarter with an ankle injury. Looks like the market is telling you that she is going to play, though, because without Skylar in, I don't think that this number should be as high as it is. I think it should be more like 4.5. So this is a Skylar in number, which still makes me a little bit nervous because I don't know if it is confirmed that she is going. But Seattle did dominate the first time around. They won 95-79, covered the 11.5, went over that 157.5. So just a big talent difference between the Sparks and the Storm, especially with the Sparks having gone through their injuries as well. So nothing for me here yet. I'm going to wait and see, though, if we get any confirmation about Diggins-Smith.
Market definitely is telling you that, for sure, that she'll be in. Yeah, stay off for me. The Sparks at this point, again, just not there yet. Next year's the year you expect the leap out of L.A. Brink's injury didn't help things.
It's a shame, too, because she really brought a lot to that team. I mean, they were
great defense, great rebounding.
Yep.
6-17 for LA right now on the season. You brought it up in the starting 5, top 2 teams in the East. New York and Connecticut, again, for playoff positioning in the WNBA, just for people that are new to it, there are no conferences for playoff seeding. They just go straight 1 through 8. Doesn't matter if you're in the East, doesn't matter if you're in the West. Las Vegas could be playing Indiana in round 1, which, boy, that would be quite the series if you got that right out of the gate, if you happen to do it. But these are the top 2 teams currently in the East, and actually you can make it the whole WNBA, number 1 and number 2. The Liberty have already beaten Connecticut twice this year. They beat them both times at Mohegan Sun. Now the scene shifts to Brooklyn. There's another matchup after the Olympic break as well in August. New York, 3.5, 154 your total. No Breanna Stewart again. Didn't matter on Saturday. New York really handled Chicago because Sabrina Ionescu had arguably her best offensive game of the season. You know, this would be a lean to New York even without Stewie for me. I just don't think Connecticut matches up well with this team. Now, what we do know about Connecticut, Alex, and you brought this up a lot, they're great defensively.
Yep.
If they're not the best team in the WNBA defensively, they're the second best. Them in Minnesota have been pivoting 1 and 2 all year. This could be one of those games where you just say, no, Stewart. Connecticut's going to want to put this game to a halt. maybe you go under that super low total of 154, even with the Liberty's offensive potency, even without Stewart.
So I was looking at the side, kind of fixated on that, because I do think even without Stewie in, I still have them 4.5-point favorites over the Sun. Not enough for me to do anything there. I don't want to lay that, especially because I do think Connecticut could take advantage of this. Going back to the total, though, I'm glad you brought that up. Opened 153.5, moved down to 152.5, so I didn't jump in. Now, bettors are betting this up to 154. I think this is a good time that we could go to the under. I made it 151.5. My grandpa made it 149.5. That gives us just about a 5-point value there to go under in this one. You mentioned it, second best defensively. Now, Connecticut is still pretty high offensively as well. They are third, but New York's pace has slowed down since the beginning of the year. They're now the 6th fastest pace in the league of 12. So I think that'll have an effect on it as well, especially without Breanna Stewart in there. So, yes, I do like that under.
Under 154, 149. I wouldn't expect. That is a low for this league at this point. But again, these are the top two teams in the league at the moment. No Breanna Stewart, the big news in this one here tonight. All right, Alex. Let's go back to what the market has been doing on a lot of these games so far this year, because they did it again here in Vegas tonight. The Aces hosting the Sky. Side hasn't moved. Been stuck on 13 now since the South Point opened it early this morning. The total, I know in shocking fashion here, has been bet up. Behind us, 170.5 to 173 on that total. Did it even hit 173.5? So it is starting to come back a little bit. But Chicago, again, a young team fighting for that 8th playoff spot. Really, at this point, a Chicago-Atlanta battle for that 8th playoff spot in the WNBA. The Aces playing a lot better as we thought they would since Chelsea Gray's returned from injury.
I was looking for a partner for the Aces to tease them down and thinking maybe even Seattle, but now that number has ballooned up, so it kind of lost the value there. But I did say that on Saturday going into Sunday, Aces storm, tease them down. We got there Sunday, so I was also going to look to Washington to maybe tease them up and get a few more points there against Phoenix, but nothing really strong in this one. I would lean to the Aces. I don't love the double digits, so if you can find a way, or you like one of those sites to tease them with it, I think you'd be fine covering 8.5 here over Chicago. First game, they did win pretty comfortably, 95 to 83. They were 10.5-point favorites in that one and covered that one. Did go over, very high scoring game. So I understand why bettors are betting this up. I made it 172, so didn't jump in on the 170, but maybe I should have. That was definitely the best of the number.
I had to do some quick math in my head to make sure what that first, once you mentioned the final score of what it was, that would even be over this 173 as well. So I don't like betting bad numbers, but I think the market has properly played this correctly to the over, unlike some of these games where it just feels like it's a blind overplay from a lot of people.
Right.
This does feel like the books did open it too low. Now we're getting to the right number. You had 172, so no value on a 173 based off of your 172.
It's funny because I think that says more about New York, because on Sunday I also said if we can get 160, we're going over that with Chicago and New York. Luckily, it opened higher than that, and then the game went way under because of New York's pace. Now we have the Aces, who are the fastest paced team in the league, and then Chicago, they have really upped their pace. They are now the 4th quickest. So, as I mentioned, Saturday, they do like to run with teams, and they can keep up. So, I wouldn't jump in on the under now. Maybe wait in game, and you can get a better number for the over.
Slow start, getting the 160s, why not? That actually would be the best strategy. I'm with you there. That would be the best strategy of playing this one here. There's only 2 games before the Olympic break tomorrow. We'll break them down on the show. Minnesota and Atlanta, Dallas and Indiana. And then we're into the All-Star break and then the full Olympic break. So WNBA will be off until August 15th after tomorrow, if you're not including the exhibition, which will be the WNBA All-Stars against Team USA. So that will be a whole lot of fun there in Phoenix over the weekend. All right, we don't have the football on fire today, but we can go into the NFL. The AFC West, we've made it through the NFC. We're now in the AFC. And boy, we get to start off with a doozy in the AFC West. We get to start off with the team that I have power rated as the worst team in the AFC, followed by the defending Super Bowl champions. So fun day here today on the show. We start with the Denver Broncos. Let's start there. Alex White, where last year they were one of the more perplexing teams in the NFL a year ago, where Denver is legitimately in the playoff hunt. They went on a road, beat Buffalo. They beat Kansas City.
First they made history by giving up the most points in a game. And then they went on that run to make it into.
They were 0-3 and in a 21-point hole against Chicago in that game 4. And then season flip. Sorry to bring that game up, Ryan. I know you wanted to erase that game from your memory. But you're right. A horrible, historically bad defensive start.
Yes.
Because it wasn't just at 70. They gave up 35 to Sam Howell. They gave up 28 and 3/4 to the Bears. Wasn't necessarily the defense's fault, but the Jets did put 31 on them as well. So they were 1-4. 1-5, I should say. They were 1-5 because they lost to Kansas City the week after the Jets. They played that Thursday night, held them to 19. Then they beat 3 playoff teams in a row. They beat Green Bay. We didn't know we're that good at that time. They beat the Chiefs. They beat Buffalo. Then they beat Minnesota. They beat Cleveland, another playoff team mixed in there. And then the wheels came off. Lose to Houston, get pummeled on that Saturday night against Detroit, lose on Christmas to New England, and then Russell Wilson gets benched. So there you go with your additions and departures here. Russell Wilson's a Pittsburgh Steeler, the largest cap eat in the history of the National Football League. Just letting him go, releasing him, eating the money. It was clear Sean Payton couldn't stand him the whole year, even when they were winning games. Justin Simmons is gone. A lot of changes. Josie Jewell goes to Carolina. Jerry Jeudy traded to Cleveland. That's just scratching the surface. A lot of other defensive pieces were also traded as well or not re-signed in the offseason. On the additions, it's not a lot of fun. Brandon Jones, good replacement for Simmons. Rookie and Bo Nix. Zach Wilson is a backup, but maybe even a number 3 quarterbacks. Josh Reynolds is a wide receiver. Not much going on here with the additions here, Alex.
No, not at all. I think we're in the same ballpark here where I do think the Broncos are one of the worst AFC teams, if not the worst. You can't tell me that Bo Nix or Zach Wilson or Jarrett Stidham is going to be better than what they had with Russell Wilson, even though it wasn't Russell Wilson prime, and I know that they didn't get along. I mean, on the upside, Bo Nix will be a lot more coachable for him, so they have
you
that.
Would hope.
But I don't have a lot of faith in this team. I actually have them only winning 4 games. I know their win total is sitting there at 5, so that's a tough number to even try and go under. But yeah, not a lot.
I didn't send you my notes because that was the exact number I had circled for them. 4, maybe even 3 for Denver here. Going into the season. By the way, the numbers on the right, Bo Nix, 18-1 to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. Patrick Surtain, they look, for a bad team, they do have some elite guys. Surtain is, to me, the second best corner in the National Football League. Only guy better Sauce. Payton is a Hall of Fame coach, but again, it's not the same guy we saw in New Orleans. I like Cortland Sutton. Would not shock me if he ends up getting dealt at the trade deadline if Denver is way out of it already. Garrett Bowles is a really good left tackle who could also be a guy they could consider moving, only 1 year left on his deal. So potential for some even in-season trades if things go awry here for Denver. If you go to the schedule, 5.5, as you mentioned, super low win total. Them in New England with the 2 lowest win totals in the AFC at 5.5. Look, the beginning of the schedule isn't too intimidating. That is the one counter argument to what you and I have here, Alex. Where you look at the left side of that schedule, they're an underdog at Seattle in the rematch of that ridiculous game we saw 2 years ago when Russ returned. The moment when we knew Nathaniel Hackett was well in over his head, even all the way in week 1. Pittsburgh at home, we know Denver, even though it hasn't worked out the last 2 years, we know historically speaking, Denver is usually a plus 60% number against the spread in the last 15 years. Even including last year where they didn't cover any of those first 3 home games. But they're usually really good early in the year. Teams struggle with that elevation in September when they're still figuring out their own bodies. Back-to-back East Coast trips, there'll be a dog in Tampa. There'll be more than a touchdown in New York against the Jets. But then they get the 2 divisional games at home and Carolina mixed in week 8.
Yeah.
There is a path where Denver could be a surprise and be 4-4 through 8 games. There's a path.
Yeah.
Which then brings me to this. I brought it up last week. Books that offer in-season win totals are going to be your friend, and they should be your friend moving forward. If Denver gets out even 3-5, that number is going to jump. It may even jump to 7.5, which if it jumps to 7.5, with that second half of the schedule starting week 9 in Baltimore, good luck finding more than maybe 2 wins. So if you can find an in-season win total that goes north of 5.5 at any point, especially if we start touching 7.5, I mean, goodness, somehow a few years ago, we got Denver moving from a 7.5 to a 10.5 in season, despite winning 2 games they were favored in. If you get a bloated number in season, might be the best under to attack of anyone here, Alex.
I can't hate it at all, especially when I lean towards that under 5.5 already. Yeah. If I can get a better number than that, I will definitely be jumping in. Some other positives, I mean, they do have both coordinators coming back that they had last year with Joe Lombardi as the OC and Vance Joseph as the DC. But really, I mean, this team just struggled defensively so much they need to improve on. 29th in opponent yards per game, 30th in opponent rushing yards, and 23rd in opponent passing yards per game. 23% of opponent drives resulted in touchdowns. So it's really the defensive side of the ball that I'm concerned about. And then on top of that, we have new quarterbacks coming into play. So they would only look to the under. And as you're mentioning, if we can get a better number in season, I think that's the way to go.
Well, not only is it new quarterbacks, also but just look at the track record of the 2 guys on the roster. Wilson right now has to be regarded as one of the biggest busts in NFL draft history through his first few years. And Stidham's a backup. If Jarrett Stidham was your backup, I would feel comfortable. But the fact that Jarrett Stidham, through all the reports I've seen, Jarrett Stidham is trending to being the week 1 starter.
Yeah,
that's not good. That's a problem. If Jarrett Stidham is your week 1 NFL starter, I'd almost be inclined, if I'm Denver, if it's even remotely close between these 3 guys, that I throw Nix in. Just say, you know what? Let them go. If we're 4-13 this year, it's fine. We're not ready to win anyway.
Right.
And Payton, look, Sean Payton has total security here. Unless if the locker room turns into a toxic mess and there's just other factors that doesn't allow Denver to keep Payton around, they probably can go 4-13 twice and Payton's not getting fired. So that would be the way that I would look. Again, this is, you and I are in agreement.
Yep.
I have them power rated 16th in the AFC and 31st overall. Only Carolina's behind them. And after doing a little bit more in Carolina like we did last week, it's a little bit even closer than I thought.
Yeah.
So this is on paper, bad football team. But I will preface this, Alex. The last 2 years, at least for my preseason ratings, there's been a team each year in the 30s for me that's made the playoffs. Because Seattle was in the 30s for me last year. They're a bottom 3 team. 2 years ago, they made the playoffs 2 years ago. Tampa was a bottom 3 team for me going into last year. They won the division. Now it was a weak division, but they still were in the playoffs and won a playoff game. So there's always chances for surprises. There's no such thing as a lock in the National Football League, as we know.
That is the only scary part, too, looking at that schedule right there, because yes, we expect even more regression from the Seahawks and even potentially the Buccaneers. But when you're just looking at quarterback against each other, I mean, you got Geno Smith and then we got Russell Wilson or Fields, Baker Mayfield, Aaron Rodgers. So I would take any of those first 4 quarterbacks over who we have with the Broncos. So might be a little bit tougher than we think, especially with 3 road games. But if they can get a couple from the Raiders, Chargers, and Panthers, then we'll be okay jumping in later for the win total.
By the way, these teams play in week 8, Carolina and Denver. That will be, I don't know if you did this, but just eyeballing it from here, Denver's maybe favored in 3 games this year. Maybe at most. Favored against Carolina week 8. Possibly favored in those 2 divisional games in week 5 and week 6 if the Chargers and the Raiders both get off the bad starts, possibly. And then, unless if the wheels fall off for the Colts,
right,
which would be a lot of wheel falling off if that were to be the case, I don't see another game they're favored in. So maybe 3 on the high end, actually, here for Denver this year that they're favored in.
I agree. I think that sounds about right. And I mean, that could even switch because people have very high hopes for the Chargers.
Could very easily be 1.
Yes.
Could be 0 if Carolina is better than we think as well. I mean, not impossible.
It is not.
Which I can tell you right now, that would be a bet on Denver. So that would be a bet on Denver if they're getting points at home against any of those teams.
With all that said, I didn't find any best bets just yet. Not offensive player of the year, defensive player of the year, or coach of the year.
Oh, yeah, nothing.
Really just looking at that win total, trying to find the best number.
Yeah, it's fine. If you can find a 6, go ahead. I'd be comfortable laying juice, but if you get a quick start from this team, this is the best in-season under team that I can find now. Bo Nix is a lot better than we thought. It comes on like Herbert did his rookie year, then maybe we're sweating a little bit, but we'll see. We'll see how it all plays out. All right, we'll take a quick break. When we get back, golf and the Kansas City Chiefs. What a fun combination that is. When we get back, Sports by the Book, South Point Studio.
South Point offers all the types of entertainment you'd expect at a first-class Las Vegas resort. Did you know our 400-seat showroom is one of Las Vegas's top destinations for live entertainment? Enjoy live performances by classic Vegas entertainers, bands, and today's hottest comedians, plus a rockin' dance floor. You can also enjoy live entertainment at the Grand View Lounge, where you'll feel all the vibes of old Las Vegas. Enjoy the music, and if you love to laugh, don't miss The Dirty at 12:30, our very own free comedy show, every Friday night at 12:30 a.m. in the Grand View Lounge. The Dirty is 100% free, so arrive early. Go to southpointcasino.com or call the box office at 77136 for today's performances at the showroom and the Grand View Lounge. When you're ready for your favorite cocktail, stop in and unwind at one of our 7 specialty lounges. There's a bar around every corner, because you're in Vegas, baby. South Point Casino has plenty of attractions for the whole family. Catch a movie. Our 16-screen movie theater includes 2 XD Extreme screens for the ultimate in viewing, sound, and luxury. After the show, treat the family to a variety of treats at our old-fashioned ice cream parlor, Kate's Corner. We scoop up a variety of creamy concoctions, including smoothies, hand-dipped cones, milkshakes, malts, sodas, and sundaes. At Kate's, there's something for everyone. And if you've still got time to spare, our bowling center might be right up your alley. Voted Best of Las Vegas, it's a great place for friends and family fun. 64 lanes, a pro shop, snack bar, and arcade. And while the kids are bowling, you can play slots and sip on a drink in the Alley Cat Lounge while overlooking the lanes. For our more serious and professional bowlers, the South Point is also home to a separate tournament bowling plaza.
Welcome back in. Jeff Parles, Alex White, Sports by the Book here on a Tuesday. We're already more than halfway home in July. How about that? More than halfway home in July. A little bit jarring. A little bit jarring, Alex.
We have some college football lines coming out this week from the South Point. Top games.
Can we announce what's going on later in the week here, Ann? Is that okay, or should we wait on that? We'll wait on it then. But be on the lookout. Be on the lookout. South Point Games of the Year.
That's right.
Coming later this week. Is that okay? Can I say it or no? Yes? Okay. We will have a special on Friday. We have a special on Friday here on the desk. More information coming later in the week. So we'll have a special college football, never too early.
That's right.
You and I will be talking a lot of college football in August as well. So we'll be ready to go. But be on the lookout here at the South Point Games of the Year coming later this week here at the South Point, along with a special after the bettors have had some whacks at it as well. So be on the lookout for that. All right. Let's go some golf here real quick, Alex. Numbers hot off the presses behind us. So, Scotty Scheffler, I know, shocking development here. 5-1 to win at Royal Troon. Rory McIlroy, 10-1. Ludwig Aberg, 15-1. Xander Schauffele, 15-1. Where's Colin Morikawa?
He is 20-1.
Morikawa, that's the best number I've seen of Morikawa in the market is 20-1.
And then DeChambeau is 12-1.
Yeah, Hovland at 20. Fleetwood at 25, wouldn't bet that. Rahm at 20, wouldn't bet that. My whole philosophy this week, actually, I'm looking down the board. There are some better numbers in the market. It's 40-1 behind us. Small dart on Hideki Matsuyama would be the way that I would look to play this week. Now, I will say I was kind of hoping that Robert McIntyre wouldn't hold everyone off last week because I was hoping that, hey, maybe finish second or third, that number doesn't shorten too much. It's now too short at 60-1. But look, you're always looking at this tournament more so than anything. You're looking at what the wind is going to be.
That's right.
How cold it's going to be, and is it going to rain? Right now, the weather report for Troon, Scotland, for this week, which is where Royal Troon is absolutely miserable on Saturday and Sunday. Thursday, you're looking at about 15-mile-an-hour winds. It's not going to rain. 65 degrees Fahrenheit. We don't go Celsius here in the United States, as we know. 65 degrees with 12-mile-an-hour winds on Friday. Okay. Saturday and Sunday is where this gets not so fun. It's going to be 64 with a 75% chance of rain on Saturday with about 50-mile-an-hour winds. Sunday, 60 with a 55% chance of rain and 20-mile-an-hour winds. So, even though I like Matsuyama, that may not be the best of ideas. I just like the price once you get north of 50-1.
He did just miss the cut.
He did.
So you're getting a better number and maybe a bounce back spot.
Always also with him, cold weather, has had back issues as well in the past. So that's always a little bit of a concern. Maybe we look to Euro golfers this week. Maybe we look to the Terrell Haddons of the world, the Tommy Fleetwoods of the world, the Matthew Fitzpatricks, who has not been the same since winning his U.S. Open at Brookline 2 years ago. But maybe we look at the European golfers this week, Alex. Maybe that's the way to go with it.
It's tough. So reading up on this course, heavy off the tee, heavy around the green.
Yep.
Putting doesn't matter so much. Ranked 8th in driving accuracy and off the tee, and then 3rd around the green. Deep bunkers. And wind, weather, like you said, we'll keep everybody updated tomorrow as well. But I mean, a lot of that points to Scotty too. So if you're going to take a shot down the board, I don't hate it at all. But I mean, those are all of his best things. And we saw at Augusta, the Masters, not perfect weather conditions, and he played just fine. So I am looking at him. I also think Rory is in really, really good form right now. So I wouldn't hate that bet either. I haven't made anything yet, but I will by tomorrow.
We'll have our full cards tomorrow on the show. Danny Burke will be with us to break down the Open as well. We'll get his plays. You know, it's just also interesting, Alex, more so than anything, where this is a classic links course. Classic. And this is one of the best Open courses there is. And since it's, again, right on the water, looking at that wind report as if you're making in-play bets, figuring out what the weather, who does it favor? When is the weather going to be bad?
Right.
Is it going to hurt the guys going off early? Is it going to hurt the guys going off late? This is, to me, of the four majors, the Masters is the quote-unquote easiest to handicap. The course is the same every year. Even with weather factors, there's still so much course history on it that and it's also up the longest as well for a betting perspective. U.S. Open and PGA are pretty similar for me, where I'm looking at that. Okay, all right. But I would look at more so than anything for this tournament, the weather reports make the most of an impact on how you bet this tournament to me, Alex, more so than any of the four majors.
Also, age does tend to play a role in this tournament. We've seen more of the guys that have been in the PGA for a while. So look for that as well. Not a whole lot of newbies winning this one because it is pretty difficult. But yeah, we'll give an update. I was thinking Will Zalatoris, but he also has back. Zalatoris, he has the same kind of back issue and just had surgeries. That might not be great for him in this weather either. But he's really good off the tee. So we'll have more coming tomorrow.
60-1 on Zalatoris right now. Big bloated number. again, cold weather, back issues, a little bit of a concern. All right, let's shift over to the AFC. Let's go back to football. Let's go to the defending two-time Super Bowl champions here, and it is the Kansas City Chiefs. Alex, before we get into their schedule and their additions and subtractions, just there's a lot on the line for Kansas City this year, even from taking the betting perspectives out of things. Kansas City is looking to be the first ever team to win 3 straight Super Bowls. That has never happened, even with the great runs of the Steelers and the Patriots. None of them ever won 3 straight. Never happened. Kansas City looks to be the first team to do that. It's also seemingly the era where it's the hardest to make deep playoff runs year after year after year. And here we are, Kansas City, every year that Patrick Mahomes has been the starting quarterback, they have been in the AFC title game, Alex. So it's interesting here from a handicapping perspective of a season-long thing for the Chiefs of how much is this team going to be invested in for the regular season. We saw last year they were arguably even bad at points during the last season and won the Super Bowl. Didn't matter that they had to go on the road and win 2 playoff games away from home, but this is a little bit of a harder handicap regular season-wise for the Chiefs because beginning of the schedule is pretty difficult, first 6 games. After that, it really does soften up after that, Alex.
It does, and it's the 12th easiest schedule based off of win totals from Sharp Football Analysis. So they still got some breaks here for this schedule. I can't bet against Kansas City right now. Their roster looks even better than last year, and looking at what they went through last year, not taking the regular season very serious and kind of pulling themselves back up, I can't see them repeating that same thing. I like their win total over. I know that they just barely went over last year. They were 12-5, and I believe it's 11.5. But going through their schedule, I can see a pretty easy path for them to get over that win total. It helps a lot when their division has not been very competitive. And there's a lot on the line for the Chargers and Harbaugh because we're expecting a lot from that. But as up until this point, they have not been very competitive and made that pretty easy for them. And I think this year, it's going to take another year for the Chargers. So I think the Chiefs will be okay. I'm definitely not betting against them, and I'm not betting and laying that 220 to win the division.
If you just look at this division as a whole, the Broncos, you and I just said, worst team in the AFC potentially. You just mentioned it there. You think the Chargers are 1 year away. I would agree, at least being able to compete for a division. Maybe not a playoff spot, but for a division. We'll have the Chargers tomorrow, by the way, as well. The Raiders, we'll get to them tomorrow. I think their defense is going to be awesome, but I think their offense is lacking in a big way. Kansas City, it's just, for their win total, you mentioned it, you like over 11.5. It is very difficult to get those high numbers home. There's a reason that you very rarely see anything now in this day and age north of 11.5. Niners were 11.5 well. Baltimore is 11.5 as well. Those are the 3 big ones right now this year. That first 6-game stretch is genuinely difficult. Genuinely difficult. Yeah, they have the home games to begin the season, but they're short favorite against Baltimore, which some people have taken some big positions on Baltimore here, leading us into the season.
Yeah, no more 3s out there, really.
Yep, all 2.5.
Only getting 2.5.
All 2.5. Cincinnati has played Kansas City pretty well, all things considered. Beat them in the AFC title game, has beat them in the regular season whenever Burrow has played. Right. In the Burrow era. Atlanta on Sunday night, I don't think is a gimme. I think the Chiefs win, but I don't think that's a gimme. At the Chargers divisional game, they'll beat the Saints on a Monday night, but at San Francisco, Niners will be favored in that game more likely than not.
Yes.
So it's a really difficult first 5 of 6, not including New Orleans. But after that, boy, at Buffalo won't be an easy game. Buffalo manages to beat Kansas City in the games that don't really matter. They don't beat them in the playoffs. At the Browns, I don't know what Cleveland's going to be in Week 15. I know that will be probably a bad weather game in December in Cleveland, but I don't know what the Browns are going to be at that point. I'm lower on them. We'll get to the Browns next week when we do the AFC North. At Pittsburgh, again, I'm low on Pittsburgh. That game against the Texans is a Saturday night. That Steeler game is Christmas on a Wednesday this year. Wednesday Night Football, great, right? But this is, to me, I think that 11.5 is a perfectly good number. I don't think it's a bettable number for me. If you feel there's an edge, absolutely go for it. I probably wouldn't go under because if they get out 2-0, that win total is going to vault. They get out 2-0, that win total is going to vault even to 12.5, maybe even 13 in those in-season numbers. I would look to go under those in-season numbers. I think 11.5 sharp. But if you get north of it, 12.5, 13.5 in-season, that would be when I would look to come under, Alex.
I think you could go either way, too. And if you want to wait it out, and if they go 0-2 and lose to the Ravens and the Bengals to start the season, and you get a better number, I mean, look at week 10 through 18, like you already mentioned. That part of their season is very easy, or not easy, but doable for this team. So, yeah, either way you want to play it. I don't love going over double-digit win totals and betting them, but I wouldn't go under as well. So I would only go over.
Looking at the division as a whole real quick, Alex, I know we'll do this as well over the weekend. There are your current full numbers for the division. Chiefs, again, they have not, going on a decade now, winning the division straight, Alex. Minus 220, plus 325 on the Chargers, 7-1 on the Raiders, 20-1. Boy, that price even at 20-1 is not steep enough on Denver to win the division. You didn't like minus 220. I think I don't like laying prices like that, but I'd much rather lay this one than the Niners in the NFC West, because at least in the NFC West, I can really make a case for a healthy Rams that, hey, the Rams could win 11, 12 games. Purdy goes a little bit backwards. There's a little disharmony with the Ayuk and Samuel contract situations, even the slightest defensive regression in San Francisco. The Rams could steal the division. It would take a Mahomes injury in order for Kansas City. If they won a division last year comfortably, when they were mediocre for an extended period of time last year, even though they won the Super Bowl, I don't see any of these teams catching them. So I don't mind laying minus 220. Really don't. Would have liked it to be $1.90, but I think minus 220 is a totally fair price to lay, at least on my end in the division with Kansas City.
I would look for books that have the exact order and see what kind of odds you can get for right there, what the South Point is giving you. I like that order right there with the Chiefs, Chargers, Raiders, Broncos. Might do a little bit on switching the Chargers and the Raiders and having both of those in pocket. But yeah, I mean, when you're talking about this roster, we don't know Rashee Rice yet, if he's going to be suspended for a little bit. So they could be without him, but adding Hollywood Brown was huge for them because wide receiver was their worst position last year. We know Travis Kelce is getting a little bit older, but he's still Travis Kelce and still finds a way. Pacheco has turned out to be a really good running back in this league. And then they have their interior O-line that is just so good with Thuney and Humphrey. So, I mean, I just don't see this team taking a huge step backwards. I think they've got this division on lock, and just looking at their numbers from last year, I mean, they're even, especially defensively. I mean, that's what really held them too.
Yeah.
So, yeah, second in opponent points per game, fifth in opponent yards per game. So, and getting their DC back and their offensive coordinator back as well. So, looks like they're in a pretty good spot.
Yeah, as long as Spags is there, even if they have a down portion of the regular season defensively, you know that they'll come on in the post. We've seen this with Spagnuolo enough. We know what we're getting out of him. I was going to say, instead of laying that 220, them to win the AFC Championship plus 175. Now, I think here's the one. I'm happy you brought that up. The one issue with betting Kansas City to win the AFC or win the Super Bowl right now is we're almost assuredly going to get better numbers at some point during the regular season. Something will happen. Even if it's as simple as Baltimore goes to Arrowhead and beats them week 1. As simple as that. If the Ravens pull a short upset week 1. At some point, we're going to get better numbers. Look.
Lions pulled a short upset last year.
Beat them last year, week 1. That kind of was the announcement. Hey, the Lions are for real again. Are now for real, and they showed out to be the whole year. It's interesting though. This AFC, and I thought it last year, and it didn't play out that way. Where the AFC turned into this really jumbled mess more so than anything. I think we were talking about it before the show. I think there's 12 of the 16 teams are capable of making the playoffs and I think winning a playoff game this year. 12 of the 16. I know some will probably argue with me on Pittsburgh, with Indianapolis, with Jacksonville. There will be some arguments mixed in there. They're like, no, they're not capable of doing that. But I really do think that 3/4 of this league is capable of getting to the postseason, winning a playoff game. And I don't think it will be as easy for Kansas City to go on the road if they have to and win multiple playoff games on the road, because I think Cincinnati is much better than they were a year ago. They weren't in the playoffs. Burrow was hurt. Baltimore, if they happen to be as good as they were a year ago, have to learn from what happened to them in the AFC title game. Run the football, Baltimore, where they abandoned the run in that game. Buffalo, the AFC East teams, one of those 3 AFC East teams, is winning 12 or 13 games. I just don't know which one it is. I know people are down on Buffalo. Still think they're pretty good. I think the market might actually be overcorrecting the other way on them. Miami, maybe they're a regular season team that's great in the regular season. And if Aaron Rodgers stays healthy for the Jets, their roster is as good as anyone in the AFCs. So there are a lot more teams around Kansas City that make it hard to justify an AFC future or a Super Bowl future, which is why I lean to the division. I also like your angle of the exact order, where that order of the teams are right now. I think that's a pretty good order of what it finishes. Chiefs 1, Charger 2, Raider 3, Denver 4. I think if we can find that exact and the price is right, I think that's pretty good too.
I mean, the bookmakers, they're pretty good at their job, right? Yeah. So those odds are pretty good. I was pretty shocked to see the Raiders are 10-1 to win the AFC Championship.
Is that here?
Yes.
Yeah, there's some
local.
There's some local angles baked in, I would say, more so than anything. Or someone came in here and bet them huge would be the only explanations that make much sense, because they're 7-1 to win the division, 10-1 to win the AFC.
Right.
Don't bet the Raiders to win the AFC, kids. Don't do that. You mentioned it real quick. I just want to bring up additions, because they really had added to the wide receiver room. You mentioned it, Rashee Rice probably getting suspended for multiple offseason incidences. One with a potential assault, one with that horrendous street racing accident as well in Dallas. Drafting Xavier Worthy and signing Hollywood Brown. I know people like to get on Marquise Brown. Just, hey, he's not that good. Hollywood Brown will fit very nicely on this team. And Xavier Worthy will fit very nicely on this team. On paper, this offense is stronger than it was a year ago. It just doesn't always work out that way, as we know. They also, actually, of course, this is the first time we're mentioning a punter in any of these. We mentioned 2 punters. Matt Arazia, who hadn't played in the NFL since leaving San Diego State. There was the accusation of sexual assault that ended up not being true. He is signed. He's the punter now because Tommy Townsend signed a nice contract in Houston. So that's a little bit different. I don't think there's any difference in the punters. I think they were top 5 punting last year. They'll be top 5 again. They do lose L'Jarius Sneed defensively, which is a big one at the cornerback position, Alex, where they look to replace his impact with Nazay Johnson, and of course Trent McDuffie will move over from the slot and now have to play on the outside. Yeah,
I think that is the only major departure that could hurt them. I mean, they did retain Chris Jones, which is really the heart and soul of that defense. So I think they will be okay. But yeah, I like their wide receiver room now, and I don't imagine that Rice will be out for too long. And he really had a good rookie season. And then with Brown, I mean, his numbers weren't great in Arizona, but he didn't have Kyler Murray for most of that time. And they were much better when he was in Baltimore.
Yeah, I think this is the best version you're going to see of Hollywood Brown in the NFL. I really do. I think the best version of him.
I mean, you have the best quarterback in the league.
It doesn't hurt, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't hurt. I will say, we don't know. We have no idea on the Rashee Rice front. We don't know. It could be 3 games, could be 7 games, could be 10. We don't know. We really have no idea. It could be 0. I doubt it would be, but it could be 0. So
I guess it
could be anything.
It could
anything
be
with
season.
Rashee Rice at this point. So we'll see how it all plays out. All right. Tomorrow on the show, Danny Burke will join us. We continue the AFC West. Raiders, Chargers, the cities of Los Angeles and Las Vegas. We also will have our official plays for Royal Troon at the Open Championship. And who knows, maybe we'll even look at some second half baseball stuff tomorrow as well. With baseball off both Wednesday and Thursday, we'll give you maybe some betting angles that you can take advantage of in the second half of Major League Baseball. But before we get out of here, we have to check in. Can't forget our guy, Ryan McCormick.
Yeah.
Good morning.
Morning, guys. Great show. We had Joey B, Dean Hill, JR, Frank, and Keith in the chat for you guys' show today, so they were enjoying it. Anybody else that wants to?
Did Joey B make any lines that I can bet that I would win a bunch of money on?
No, he just said you're looking sharp with the haircut.
Appreciate it.
Yeah,
I am looking sharp with the haircut. You're right, Joey B.
But on Punchlines today at noon, we've got the play-by-play voice of the UNLV Rebels football team. So Matt Neverett will join us in the studio. We will be talking about plenty of money in these the big four major sports in the U.S. So NFL, MLB, NHL, NBA. Being that it's a slow slate today, so obviously a good amount of baseball talk, being with the All-Star game and Frank's guy and Paul Skeens starting for the National League. So tune in at noon to find out more.
Very good.
Always.
And I'm glad that your camera's working. I did watch Punchlines yesterday. We didn't see you for a second.
Yeah. Had
but they got it fixed. Now.
Frank
Just for
sabotaged
sure.
it. It's okay. It's okay.
Never know.
Yeah, you never know. Hey, and look, even though there's a plan, you never know. Frank might say something ridiculous. He might break. Well, hopefully he doesn't break a TV monitor today.
Yeah, no. Hopefully.
Golf clubs are gone, so it might be hard for him to bust one of those up. All right. Good show as always. We're back tomorrow. We have, like we said, plenty to get to in football, golf. One last day to WNBA before the hiatus with the Olympic Games starting next weekend in Paris. How about that? We're almost at the Olympics, which means Keith Lyle's going to have to figure out what he's betting in water polo. We'll have to get Keith's plays on that as well. We'll see you again tomorrow. Sports by the Book. She's Alex White. I'm Jeff Parles. Thank you to Ann, Drew Dog, as always, Keith, Ryan. We'll see you again tomorrow. Sports by the Book, South Point Studio.